Ortiz and Don Frye. Give it up for our UFC legends.
We got microphones. Where do you want us to sit?
Wherever you want.
Thanks, Pato.
We're leaving, just so you guys know, we're going to leave one chair empty for Minotauro Nogueira, who is on Brazilian time. We've come to expect that. But he will be here soon.
You can't blame that on Brazilians, dude.
It's true. It's true.
Nogueira time.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time. Everybody here that's watching, obviously, and in the crowd is excited to hear from you. The question that I'd love to kick things off with is, for you guys, if we fast forward and you look at the sport today, we've got a performance center. We've got more people getting inducted to the Hall of Fame. We've got an International Fight Week, 2 cards in a row, compared to when you started. Do you take pride in being ambassadors and being pioneers and knowing that you had a big part of this and where we are today?
Don't blame me.
No one ever blames you, Don.
I remember my weigh-in was in the hotel room with my opponent and my buddies, and that was the weigh-in. Now you got 8,000 people. So yeah, it's pretty different.
Yeah, I remember UFC 13 in Augusta, Georgia, weighing in literally in not even a ballroom. I think it was just one of the side rooms they had. And there was 10 people and then the corners, and that was it. It's crazy to see where it is today. It's to you fans. I mean, you can't be screaming for us and getting the support for us. It was not for you fans. The UFC, MMA in general, to us fighters, we're here just putting on a show. Just make sure you guys are entertained. And that was UFC 13. Oh, you're talking to Mississippi.
He almost did that.
Yeah, Mississippi. That was back in the day. I know, as you can go back to say till now, I mean, as this UFC weekend and back when we didn't have no PR. I mean, our PR was our own. We didn't have media. We didn't have social media. I can only imagine what type of champion that we would be now if we had social media, how these guys have it now. I guess they're very lucky, thankful.
Absolutely. Don,
Hey, we never even had weigh-ins. They just took your word for it.
Is that in Pride? It was the honor system at Pride?
He beats us.
You know what?
He does beat us.
Yeah, I think they just took everybody's word in Pride, too.
Now, Don, I've talked to a lot of fighters, and I've picked their brains this week, you know, knowing I was going to host this panel. And many of them are afraid to admit to you personally that they now take advantage of this thing known as the UFC Performance Center, where they get meals cooked for them. They have massage therapists, therapy and training centers. You know, when you think of these men and women going over there for training, what goes through your head, Don Frye?
That's shocking, man, I'll tell you. God bless them. I'm glad that they get that, you know. I mean, good for them. Geez, I'd remember I'd be driving my pickup truck. I'd drive an hour and a half to, what's wrong with that? I'd drive an hour and a half to go, you know, box or wrestle, and then drive an hour and a half home. I'd drive 40 minutes to go up and run the mountain, you know. I mean, then when I was training for UFC 8, Becky Levi was my strength and conditioning coach. And she said, well, let's go swim. We had put floaties on me, on my ankles and my wrist. I'd sink.
Gentlemen, we're going to get into some of those old school stories, but today, the current fighters, is there any athlete out there, man or woman, that you really see that you're a fan of, that you look at as a pioneer, as a legend, say, wow, I really like what this athlete's doing, and they're kind of the new era, the modern era pioneer, and they're going to help pave the way for what this sport will be 20 years from now?
I would say Demetrius Johnson, but he's been busy for a while. And then I would say Joanna Jędrzejczyk. I love her, man. Unbelievable. Also the decisions she makes, you know, going to American Top Team. And normally you see that happen when somebody loses a fight. They say, oh, I got to work on my ground, and I'm working on. But she looks ahead, and she knows that in the future there's a lot of people going to be gunning for her, going for takedowns. So I better tune up on that. So, yeah, those two I really like.
I would have to say number one, Chris Cyborg. It's awesome that she's respected at the level she is right now. And people get to see how vicious she truly is. She's a very respectful woman, but once she gets in that cage, she's an animal. And I've recognized that a long time ago. You know, hopefully Johnny Bones Jones gets his stuff together and, you know, performs the way he truly can. He's a man who I respect as a champion. And, you know, sometimes we get caught in the wrong roads, and we got to look in the mirror sometimes and demolish those demons. And hopefully he's able to do that and come back as a champion.
And speaking of that, do you gentlemen get an opportunity now to communicate with current fighters and pass on advice? And if you could now, what would be the best advice you'd give these athletes today moving forward in their career?
Save your money and get a prenup.
Oh. Hold on, let me write that down.
I would say, if the doctor tells you that you should take a month rest, take 2 months. That's what I would do. Because fighters, 1 month, that's 1 week. We start again. And that's the dumbest thing because it will all come back to you. I promise you. So take your time.
I would have to say get a financial advisor. Treat this like a business. This fight game is a business. I've understood it since day one. What am I going to do when I'm 40 years old? And now I'm able to walk away. January 21st was my last fight. And I was able to walk away with still money in my bank. As Don Frye says, watch your money. I watch my money. I got 3 boys. I got to make sure I look for the future of everything, you know, school and so forth. But work hard for the future. I started my clothing company. After my my fight game was over, I understood where's my income coming in. They said a successful person has 5 streams of revenue coming in. I just started a wholesale car business, started my management company, my clothing company, doing some acting, and I'm still looking for this 5th one, and still staying busy. Busy American who's living the American dream, that's for sure.
Yeah, let's definitely take a moment to applaud for that, right? Tito, you touched on this. You were the very first guy to establish a brand and really bring a business sense to that brand and continue to grow it. Not necessarily playing a character, but hey, you were going to make sure that every fight you were in, you made sure people paid attention. Is it pretty cool to see how many people are emulating the book that you wrote, or do you not feel like you get enough credit for that?
I'm really not looking for credit. I just was always looking forward to what I needed to do before a fight. You know, I was still a huge fan of Muhammad Ali. Rest in peace, Muhammad Ali, and of course Hulk Hogan. I watched both of them in their respective sports of professional wrestling and Ali in boxing. How could I find a happy medium in between? And I was able to do that through my 20-year career. I was able to find that happy medium in mixed martial arts because nobody else was doing that at the time. You know, I watched guys like Don Frye. People talk about my ground and pound. My ground and pound was just mimicking Don Frye, mimicking his ground and pound with the elbows. I watched him do it. I was like, man, if I can do that to a guy, it's going to be devastating. Watching Boss Rutten with his leg kicks, I was like, God, if I could leg kick something like that, I'll be a bad man. I mean, and there was a time me and actually Boss had to fight each other. I was like, I don't want to fight that guy. He's vicious, man. The hell with that. But it never happened, thank God. We became even better friends, which is good. But, you know, I think at the end of the day, making a brand of yourself is really, really important. So when this game of mixed martial arts or as a fighter or as an athlete, and when it's over, you have something to fall back on. So now I'm reaping the awards from it, and I'm very thankful and lucky because of you fans and the sport of MMA.
Awesome. And, you know, you mentioned almost having to fight one another. For you guys, is there one fight that you're most proud of? I think, you know, for me, I know, like, most fighters have one fight that stands out in their mind where, you know, I'm most proud of this one. And it's typically for reasons that the fans don't know about, because you had things going on outside the octagon that you had to overcome to get that performance. Is there a fight for that, for each one of you? Question for each one of you. Do you guys have a fight like that you're most proud of?
Of course there is.
Let's hear about it, Mr. Frye.
Oh, you want to hear about it?
I would love to hear about it.
Question.
I have a lot. I got lucky. I had a lot of good fights. You know, when I fought Akibono, I had bronchitis, you know, and so I had to fight that and go through it. And then I think the one I'm most proud of is my first loss against Mark Coleman. you know, because I woke up sick that day, and then I just went downhill, and, you know, I'm laying in the, when I'm fighting him, he's kicking the shit out of me, and, you know, I never thought about quitting, you know, and found out something about me and myself, you know, I didn't know existed, so, you know, then I got more fans from that fight than I did from the other fights, you know.
That's awesome. That's incredible.
For me, it will be the rematch against Funaki. He was the first guy to beat me in Japan. And then they gave me as his last fight, as my last fight on the contract, thinking that he would beat me again, but I was a completely different animal now. Now I was really well versed on the ground. And then he made the mistake to walk up to me before the fight in the corner, and he stands this distance, and he slits his throat like that. And I go, oh, I'm gonna kill this guy now. And so I tell my corner, I said, dude, I'm gonna annihilate him. And he goes, but be calm. I said, I will be calm, but you watch. Once I connect, it's gonna go downhill from there. And so I think 12 minutes in, he made an illegal kick on the ground. I got angry. I think 15 seconds down. He was down for the first time, but I had to knock him down 5 times. I mean, he kept coming up. There was in the Budokan. I mean, all the fans, he was laying there motionless, and then everybody started, Funaki, Funaki, and then he got back up, and I go, oh, stop yelling, you know? And every time, I mean, I broke his cheekbones, his nose, everything was damaged, and the last one, I grabbed him by the hair, and I just drilled my knee in his face as hard as I could, and that was it. It was over, but I was proud of that fight. Yeah.
Well, I really got to, not really hard to think about this one. This goes back to July 2nd, 2011. I remember the date so well. At the time, I was going through a bad relationship, and I had to do something for my family. I was going through a lot of negative things, you know. I was on a 5-fight loss streak. I was at a really hard time in my life, and I had to be selfish, and I had to be for myself. I fought Ryan Bader. I was a 6-1 underdog, and I remember that camp, I was in the same household with the person I was with, and I didn't speak to him the whole 7 weeks of the camp, and I really just was there for my boys, Jesse and Journey, and I had to do something for my family, I think, at that time, and was really focused on the fight in general, and I did. And I remember right before the weigh-ins, Danny comes up to me and he said, you can't have pay-per-view for this fight. And I was like, all right, is this stuff something he's trying to get in my head right now, just for me to lose a fight? All the press was telling me, yeah, so what are you going to do after this fight? You're going to lose. I mean, this is going to be your 6th loss in a row. And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? I'm kicking his ass. What are you talking about? I'm going to beat him. And he's like, no, you're not going to beat him. I remember Danny yelling at me saying, you're not getting paper. I go, no, I'm getting paper. I already did all the press for this. Why would it change? Once again, people don't understand what us fighters go through. Personally, business-wise, and as fighters, the camp was great. Everything was perfect. There wasn't one hiccup coming from Big Bear down to here. I had no problems at all checking in. I mean, this is little small detail things as fighters that we really pay attention to. Food, meals, cutting the weight wasn't a problem. I remember just at the press conference before the weigh-in, and we stood face to face, and I looked at him. I could look right straight through his eyes, and I go, I'm kicking your ass, you know that. And he just smiled. I remember at the weigh-in after I made weight, we went face to face, and I went like that to him, and he blinked, and I go, this kid, I got him. In the fight, I remember looking across, and I mean, as anybody who watches my fights, I don't lay my eyes off the person at all. I feel like a great white shark in the cage, just going back and forth. And I'm not stopping, I'm not losing eye contact until it's over. And I remember him looking at me, and then he turned around and goes, I go, I got him. This kid, he's gonna lose. Hit him with the right hook, dropped him, got him guillotined, choked him. And it just doesn't stop there, because after my hand was raised and I did the Gravedigger, it was the night before I did the Ultimate Fighter. Michael Bisping was doing the Ultimate Fighter, and all the guys were there like, Tito, man, Tito, hey, mate, please, man, do the Gravedigger for us. I was like, no, you guys gotta wait until tomorrow. They're like, you're gonna lose tomorrow. Why? I wanna see it now. I go, no, wait until tomorrow. And I remember telling those kids that, and it popped in my head when I was doing it. I know those kids are watching right now in the Ultimate Fighter house going, wow, he said he's gonna do that. And that just believing in yourself so much, not letting anybody get negative in your heart, and believing how positive things can be in your life and making the greatest of it. And I think that's one of the best wins and victories, not in just life, but in my fight career that I had against Ryan Bader, who is now the Bellator light heavyweight champ. And when he won the title a couple weeks ago, I just put a smile on my face and knowing that I've done well, and I'm thankful for guys like that because that saved my career. Actually, me beating him let me have 4 more fights that I made stupid money for those next 4 fights. And I was thankful for Dana and UFC and Fertitta Brothers and my fans, man. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't do what I do. And of course, my kids, I do this stuff for them. I mean, I want to give them everything I never had as a kid. And through MMA, I'm able to get that done. Oh,
there's the Brazilian. Oh. Wait a minute. Is he late? That's so weird.
Let's hear it, folks. Minotauro Nogueira.
Woo! Hey, man. How are you, sir? Really good to see you.
All right, so we just talked about a bunch of inspiring stories, the fight that meant the most to you. Now, let's switch gears here. The strangest, maybe funniest, wildest moment of your career. You know, a lot of people don't see what happens when you're fighting outside the UFC, in the circuits trying to get to this level. When you look at the lower level fighters now, like they're on TV or they're on Fight Pass, they've got this new Dana White Tuesday night series. Back when you guys were fighting in the lower leagues, man, there had to be some real funny stories. Weighing in the hotel room, the honor system weigh-ins. Give us the best, strangest story from your career, if you could, please.
Well, the one that I like, I'll go real fast, and then you can think about a really good story. No, Here Comes the Boom, right? We saw the movie when it starts raining and they're falling down and slipping down. All these moments that he used in the movie, Kevin James, were actually from real fights. So that was, and I was there. It was the King of the Cage, and there was a big rain, and everybody started slipping, and it was hilarious. People high kicks, boom, on the ground, and then they literally start sliding off each other on the ground, you know. And when I shouted, "Swim away," you know, to escape a certain submission, that probably really happened when I was there at the King of the Cage.
In the rain?
In the ring, in the cage, everything was wet. You could see the water on the cage, so it was really going hard. Yeah.
Oh, Dan Severn, you know, I was buddies with him, and I called him up, "Can you get me in on this stuff?" He said, "Yeah." And he got me a few fights, you know, across the country before I got in the UFC. And he said, "We got a fight for you in Atlanta, and it's champagne, caviar. You're going to fight for rich people, you know, you'll be in the center thing and all that." So they fly me over and put me up at the Hyatt or the Hilton or something. Really nice. I'm impressed. And then driving to the fight, the guy turns to me and says, "Oh, by the way, we can't pay you. You still want to fight?" "Yeah, sure. I'd come all the way over here. Didn't come to Atlanta for nothing, you know." So we go behind this building, go into this warehouse, and they got those blue tarps set up, you know, for your room, your dressing room. There wasn't any champagne, caviar, beer and pretzels, and bunch of people sitting there slobbering all over themselves. And we watched 2 fat guys fight for 45 minutes, and they were slipping in the sweat and the blood and all that. Boom. And I was supposed to fight this former Navy SEAL, and he comes up to me and says, "I don't know about you, but I'm not going to get paid for this." And I said, "Neither am I." He says, "Well, I won't hit you, you don't hit me." Sounds good to me, partner.
Oh. Minotauro, you got one that you can remember, one of the craziest stories before your UFC days?
Yeah, when I was fighting in Frye, you know, we have a tournament over there, you know, there was like a semi-final. And I have to fight 2 guys, you know, like Fedor and Haritona in the same day, you know, 2 Russians. They huge, you know, strong guys. And they used to put us inside of the arena by the elevators, you know, like was high there in the top of the arena. And I, you know, I was like, you know, warm up, you know, ready to come in, you know. And now I turned to the side, there was that huge Russian guy, like, facing me, you know, like, he want to fight me for real, though. So when I turned like fast, the elevator almost fall. So I be in the top of the stage, hanging down there, Took me like 10 minutes to get me out of there, So I was like, hanging down there. And then they put me down. They say, okay, man, get ready. You're going to go to inside of the ring, I was like scared, I cannot go that high, man. I'm very scared of the high places. So I think the funny story, Then I have to fight 2 fights in the same night. That was, funnest one.
In 10-minute, round 1 was 10 minutes each, right?
10 yeah, it was like now 15 minutes. The round 1 was 10 minutes, then plus 5 minutes. I was, so now I see the UFC. You don't need to fight 2 guys in the same night, So easy for the new guys, I think like that.
He knows about that.
Well, I really didn't have a pre-UFC career. I started my career in the UFC. I fought as an amateur in my first UFC event, UFC 13, May 30th, 1997, and I fought for free. I think I was the only UFC fighter ever to fight for free because I didn't want to lose my scholarship for college. I was wrestling at the time. I wrestled at Golden West Junior College, and I remember talking to my head coach there, Dal Defner, and he was, I go, well, I want to try this UFC thing out, and he's like, well, are you getting paid for it? I'm all, yeah, we'll have an opportunity to make $25,000. I think so. He goes, well, if you get paid, you can't come to school here anymore. And I was like, well, there's a toss-up. Do I want to continue my college degree or do I want to do this fighting thing? So I said, you know what? Can I do it for free? And he's all, you want to do it for free? I go, well, if I could fight, why not? I want to test, see how good I truly am. So I stepped in as an alternate. I fought Wes Albritton in Augusta, Georgia, for free. I wouldn't say this is the funniest, but the craziest thing I think I've ever done, because I look back on it, but I guess I was a young kid who didn't have any experience at all of any business acumen at all, but just I went out to prove myself, strictly myself, that I was able to do it. But I think that was probably the most funniest thing is I was one of the first UFC fighters to ever be a free, what was he called, a business or not even,
First and the last, I believe.
First and the last contractor fought for free.
Especially now. For you guys, obviously, all 4 of you are in the UFC Hall of Fame, and you guys are considered legends of the sport. Is there anybody that if you had the power right now to induct them in the Hall of Fame tomorrow, who would be your choice that you don't think is in there now that you'd like to see be in the Hall of Fame?
I would, right off the bat, Frank Shamrock.
Yeah, Kevin Randleman.
Kevin Randleman.
I'm big with Kevin Randleman also.
Yeah, Kevin Randleman. He deserves to be.
I'll do Marco Ruas, the Brazilian guy,
Marco.
old school.
That's another one.
And Frank for sure, because he's a 5-time UFC champion. A lot of people flies under the radar.
A lot of people don't. Frank is one of the guys I've always looked up to, and for him to be a 5-time world champ, the fight between me and him really set the scale of what mixed martial arts truly can be. You had a bigger man. I was the bigger man with a wrestling background. Frank was a smaller guy, but he had cardio through the roof, and that's what I learned from him. After I lost to him, I went to his camp and I started training with him. I went up to Sacramento, and I started training with him just to learn. I wanted to learn what he was doing different than I was doing to keep that cardio for 5-minute rounds, and then come to believe that it was truly just a heart rate monitor. He was monitoring his heart through the whole time, and he's a true martial artist, and I think he's one of the guys who's changed the sport for sure, at least for me.
Outstanding, and obviously Kevin Randleman, a man you fought before, who we lost this year or a year ago. Just an incredible ambassador for sport, incredible athlete as well, so hopefully we'll see that as well. Best to his family. You talked a little bit about training and going and learning. Some of you now, the people that you trained with or people that you trained are now great coaches in this sport. Dwayne Ludwig is one of the best striking coaches, maybe the best striking coach in the sport right now. He's highly regarded. How awesome is that for you guys to see? And, who are some of today's modern era coaches that you guys think are doing a phenomenal job?
My opinion, Jason Perillo and Saul Solis, the guys who I've trained with for such a long time, to able to not only just be great coaches, but be great mentors through it. I do my coaching, I coach Chris Cyborg for her wrestling, but able to keep a positive mentality for these fighters because they go through such up and downs to their camps, and be able to be there, have their back no matter what. And for some days that are really hard, and I remember Jason just cracking jokes to me, and it would take me out of that little bad moment. And I remember there was one really, really bad moment that a naked picture came online, and I shook my head. I said, what the hell did I do? And he looked at me, he goes, Tito, just own it. Could be worse. But I mean, like I say, Jason Perillo for sure. Jason was one of those guys who just set the standard as a good coach. Him and Saul Solis.
Awesome. Boss.
Dwayne, of course, yeah, because I know him as a fighter when I trained him, and this guy is the one guy that will always be there, always go 100%, and he transferred that perfectly to coaching. He's there 100%. Sean Tompkins comes to mind. Yes. He was like that also. We will go party out the day before, but it's 6 or 7 o'clock a.m. we come home, and he will be cutting weight with all his fighters. He was always there for his fighter. But Dwayne, the way he changed alpha male, what happened there, you know, suddenly if you see the success rate, they started knocking people out left and right. I mean, he jumped up 60%. You know, and the way he trains them, every person, he understands that every person is a different guy. You know, everybody has a different technique, and you want to keep his base, but you want to make him better in all the other areas, and he's really good at it. He's 100% constantly committed, thinking, calling me before the fight, you know, you think this game plan is good, and you know, it is a good game plan, Dwayne, we talked about this, but you know, second guessing, he's always busy, and I love it. He's a great guy also outside. You know, the most pure guy you will ever meet. I never asked him money, ever, because I just loved to train him, but he was always sending checks, which a bunch I did. I didn't want even cash, because, you know, I just enjoyed training him.
Incredible, incredible. Don, anybody come to mind?
What he said.
Man, a few words. Minotauro.
So good to hear you guys, you know, too much about the history of UFC. You know, this sports, a lot of new fans, you know, the sports grows so much. But the history of the UFC, you know, I've been seeing Tito fight forever. You know, since the beginning, man, you know. So I'm here like a fan, you know. You know, listen, you guys. I mean, I have a chance to train a lot of good guys in the Brazilian top team there in Brazil. They have a team that was Murilo Bustamante and Myris Perry. You know, all those guys, they push me today. You know, I have a really good chance to improve my jiu-jitsu. They're all from the Custom Gracie School. So they was back then, the history of the sport. So I like to see, you know, like guys get more experience than me, teaching me things, you know. And another kid was younger than me, taught me a lot of things about wrestling and that cage game, was Mark Munoz, you know, the guy from California. I learned so much with the kid, and also changed totally my mind when I came to UFC.
It's interesting. Mark Munoz was coaching Fabricio Verdum for his fight this Saturday as well, and Dwayne Ludwig obviously has several fighters, Curtis Blades being one of, I think, a could-be newborn star in the heavyweight division that he's coaching now as well, who fights this weekend. And speaking of that, lots of fights. We've got fights tomorrow night and Saturday night. Any athlete or one fight on either card that you're most looking forward to this weekend?
Who wants to start?
Let me change the subject here real fast and do a little ass kissing. This guy is the greatest fighter that ever walked the freaking planet, man. I'll tell you what.
Such a great memories I have with Yodon there in Japan, you know. We, you know, together, but, you know, a lot of good memories, you know. I have, you know, we used to take the breakfast together before the fights, and always it was the best, you know. And walk to the arena was a great time. We really have a good time with you, man. You know, a lot of respect,
Awesome.
Main event, I think Nunes. I mean,
and Nunes Shevchenko.
The way she just dismantled Rousey the last time, and she looks like she's not going to lose it. But Shevchenko has got that great footwork and is a great striker, so can she avoid it? But I'm looking forward to what happens there.
It's an amazing fight.
I would say the Romero and Whitaker fight.
Yeah.
You know, one of the most pound for pound toughest weight classes in the UFC. Michael Bisping's weight class, 185 pounds. You know, Bisping just came off his knee surgery. But Romero, man, this kid's wrestling is unbelievable. the guy's size on him is huge. But this Whitaker kid, man, he's one of the guys that's just always the underdog. It seems like everybody thinks he's going to lose, and he comes out and he always performs on a spectacular manner. And I think this fight in general, this is the one that I'm watching. I'm watching very, very close.
And, you guys mentioned the respect that you guys all have for each other. Tonight, Sakuraba finally gets inducted in the UFC Hall of Fame.
About time. Yeah.
This is a pretty educated crowd, but there's a lot of people out there, because he wasn't necessarily a UFC guy, that don't know who he is. Could you talk for a minute about, how much he meant to the sport and how special Sakuraba was for mixed martial arts?
Sakuraba was and is Pride fighting organization. They would not have been put on the map if it wasn't for him. People would dress up in gowns, $1,000 gowns and suits, and it was such a special event to go to a Pride show and to watch Sakuraba walk down that ring. It's just like the whole world came to a standstill, and you could hear the collective breath, everybody just gasp when he walked down there, and they introduced the name.
I truly believe that that's why Pride went. They didn't have a Japanese champion anymore. Sakuraba put it on the map, like he said. Without him, Pride wouldn't have been big. It's like the K1. Everything Satake, he was in the beginning. He was, he got to the finals, and it's fun when you put an event on in your own country, and for a year or four, you cheer for outsiders, so to say, kanjins. But once you want somebody from your own country at least to do well and become a winner, and when that didn't happen in the K1, you start K1 going down, and the same thing happened with Sakuraba. They couldn't find another guy like Sakuraba, and man, did they pull him through the ringer, right? With Vanderlei, he got stomped. If you guys saw that fight, holding the ropes and just stomping his head, and it was a legal thing to do there. And then, like one fight in the middle, they put him again against Vanderlei, and I go, what are you doing? Give the guy a break. Let him, but this is the guy. Give him a few fights to come back, But I think they thought, what everybody thought, that he was invincible. And but he's an unbelievable guy. The things that he did, double Mongolian judo chop with Hoist, the way he used his gi against him, start pulling it over his head, and then he started using it to pull him into his guard. He was standing, and then he grabbed him, and he pulled him up every time, so his butt was loose from the ground, and he was hitting him in the face. Man, he did things that nobody ever did before. Every time when I teach, I always tell my students, be different. Yeah. Be like a Sakuraba. Yeah. You do something that other people don't do, you're gonna be effective. Like Spence, the boxer, he's a southpaw, but he hits liver shots with the left. That's a weird thing to do. Nobody does that. Guess what? He knocks people out left and right. Do different. Be different than other people, and that makes you successful.
I think with Sakuraba, I think I was the first and only person to kiss Sakuraba in the cage, or in the ring, excuse me. I was at the Pride event, and to watch the entertainer at his value for Japan was just amazing. This guy was like a god in Japan. I'd watch him, and the Japanese fans were just so intrigued to what type of person he truly was. And not only just a fighter, I respected the man in general. To hand him flowers and all of a sudden give him a kiss and hear all the fans go, ooh. It was cool, but it was at the same time, it was my respect value to him. I respect the man so much just because of not only as a fighter he was, but as an entertainer that he was able to show what true a fighter he was. So you got to give him respect to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. He is a Hall of Famer for sure.
Absolutely. Incredible, guys. We've got time. One more question that I want to pose to the group before we have to clear the stage and get ready for these weigh-ins. You guys are pioneers of the sport. You guys help build what exists and what's going to go on this weekend. Sometimes when I talk to athletes from the NFL and other professional sports, they tease the current athletes, say they're soft or they're not doing this right, they're not doing that right. When you guys look at today's mixed martial artists, are you guys proud of them? Are they deserving? Do you feel like they've taken the torch you handed them and that they're carrying it forward and continuing to build the sport?
I think a lot of them, yes. I see a lot of guys pulling out due to injuries. All of us, maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but I had to fight to survive, it seemed like. I went from injury. I'm on my 8th surgery. I have one more surgery coming about, one more neck surgery, but I've always fought no matter what. No matter if I had a fractured orbital bone, no matter if I had a ruptured disc in my neck, torn ACLs, I've always fought, and I never had an excuse to fight. Even if I lost, I said, you know what, I was injured, but I went out there and I put my life on the line no matter what. And I watch a lot of the guys who are up here is just being respectful at the end of the day. And if you're able to put in the work and you're able to put in that hard work and not have an excuse at the end of the fight, it's hard to do, but when you're able to fight and put your life on the line, you got to show the fans what you're truly doing it for. And what I did it for was for my family. And I know a lot of these guys who fight, they're fighting from paycheck to paycheck, which is kind of hard. It's hard to see. And I think a lot of these fighters who do fight, they need to take it as a business.
Man, you know, it's, of course you sit there and you look at them and you go, you know, these guys are soft compared to when we were. Because, you know, we would fight 3 times in one night. And then you never knew who you were fighting. You couldn't prepare for somebody. Back in Pride, you know, shit, they would change my opponent 3 or 4 times, you know. And a couple of times, they would change it the day before the fight, you know, and they'd kick you extra money. But the athleticism, the way these guys, it's down to a science now, you know. I mean, you're talking about when we were fighting with sticks and stones. You know, now they got laser guns, you know. It's impressive what they've done.
Yeah.
And the women are just phenomenal. You know, seeing, you know, you can make a joke out of it. You know, when we fought, it was real men. We'd fight 3 times a night. Now they're letting girls fight, you know. Jeez. But these girls are real athletes, you know. They're phenomenal athletes.
Absolutely.
And they're beautiful, too. That's what's amazing.
They got him interested right there. I saw yesterday Michelle Watterson. I love that girl. She's a woman. Great knees in the clinch. I mean, all the fighters, what I really was offended with in the early days is guys running out of gas. And that's why the WC was one of my favorite shows to watch, because they were light guys and they could go the distance. And it's like going, if you're a painter, you're not going to bring half a can of paint to your job. You know, the only thing you can control is actually your stamina. It's the only thing you can control. Just go run some hills, you know, and now everybody's in shape. You know, now it's the opposite. There's a few that are not, and everybody's well skilled. And, you know, like you said, it's a science with the food. We talked about it, getting massages and cryotherapy. And, I mean, everything is available right now, and you can see it by the guys. They're just extreme athletes. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. You know, a lot of science is going on. A lot of great athletes, you know, is growing from the sport right now. You know, they learn how to fight in the cage. They know the new guys, they learn about everything. You know, but sometimes, you know, they make the fights too much strategy. You know what I mean? Before we didn't have a time to think exactly who you're going to fight. You know, so we didn't make a plan before we go over there. You just go there and fight. You know, so makes the fight a little bit more real, you know. And now one's a great athletes coming up, such a, you know, entertainment to watch what they're gonna do. You never expect, like spinning elbows, some things new we using to do by them, you know, but too much strategy sometimes. So I like, you know, I like old school too.
Yeah, we would make, you know, they would say, do you train for this guy, you train for this stuff? No, I let them train for me, you know.
Well, gentlemen, I think I speak for all the fans that are here. Thank you. Thank you for building the sport that we all love. Without you 4, we wouldn't have an International Fight Week. We wouldn't have this amazing card, 2 cards going on this week. Ladies and gentlemen, please, let's get on our feet. Let these gentlemen hear it. 4 legends. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's get some space for that butterfly. Nice. Clear that leg. There we go. Yes. Yep. Good head position. Nice. Good. More punches, JT. Yes. Nice. Hey, when he opens, let's look to step to half when we can. There we go.